Hello and welcome to a video with me, Raindale. Today I want to do something a bit different from usual. I do a lot of PvP and arena videos in which I take units in battle, and during those videos I want the gameplay to be the main focus, so I don't necessarily explain why I pick specific espers, specific equipment, and whatnot. So today, I don't want to go in-game, I want to do some theory crafting and really go into the thinking behind the build and behind the equipment choices and whatnot. First of all, I've been getting questions about which weapon I recommend for it to be. And I've been doing a bit of testing, both on the damage calculator from WOTV and I'm going to link that in the description below, but it's a great tool to calculate your damage without actually going in-game and changing everything. And I've also tried it in-game myself, and if I have a fully built to be for offense, the Purple Lightning will give me more damage for my slash focused abilities. Now that's most of to be's kits, so in general, Purple Lightning will actually give me some more damage. But the Virtuous Contract, if I ever use Impaler Plus or her Piercing attack, will provide me with more damage because it has Piercing attack up. And then it will also boost the Strike attack build if we're running her as a Pugilist, because it has more attack overall than Purple Lightning. And then if your Purple Lightning is not at +5, you want Virtuous Contract all the way. So I'm comparing +5s with +5s here. Purple Lightning +4 does not cut it. So that's it. Now, for the first build, this is my Magic Bruiser to be build. And the main reason why I'm not showing you in-game captures and in-game content is because it takes a while to farm Esper Resonance. So while I do have the unit at level 120, I have not yet had time to farm Resonance with several Espers. I've completed Odin Resonance, I'm doing Tetrasylphid, then my next one is going to be Titan, and then Golem. That takes a while, so I can't show these builds yet, but I can show them using the builder on, again, warwiththevision.cock. So first build is a Magic Bruiser. Now, why does To Be work well as a Bruiser in general? I think it's because of her Absorb Plus passive, which allows her to heal back for 30% of the damage she deals. Now, obviously, after more than 5 turns, the absorption wears out, but realistically, in most battles, 5 turns is enough to reach the battle's ending, so that should not be a big deal, in PvP at least. So let's talk about the Magic Bruiser build. Now, innately, To Be has 5% magic weakness. So what you want to do for a build like this is focus, I think, on her spirit more than anything. Usually, I'm going to run To Be at 50 faith. We could get more status effect procs by going higher, but that would also mean that she takes a ton more magic damage. And you could actually go all the way to 30 if you're not using bells, because that way you'll take even less magic damage. But this build revolves around having a very high spirit. So having high spirit will negate damage from any kind of mage that doesn't have spirit penetration. Now, there are ways to have spirit penetration. Rune Knights have it, Kodama wielders have a way to buff it, but Yuna doesn't have it in her base kit, unless she has a buff on, and then same for Sakura, so they don't really have passives for that in general. So that means you have pretty good resistance against most of their attacks. I think most people want to try to run To Be against Yuna when they're asking those questions. So by having 45 base spirit, and I'm going to show you in the next slide how to get to that amount, but you'll negate roughly half of the incoming magic damages. And then if you have a buff to your spirit on top of that, you'll negate almost 3/4 of the damage. And then you're gonna hit people and heal back up and keep going. So that's the whole theory behind this build. Now, because we are focusing on spirit, we are giving out some evasion. We are also giving out some of our damage because we're using, in this specific build, the Titan Esper, which provides extra spirit. And he doesn't provide that much damage to be overall. So that's the whole idea here. This build will deal damage using Impaler Plus mostly, because we're using the Virtuous Contract for Pierce attack up And then Titan has Pierce attack up as well, so we can really make the Impaler Plus hit hard, but the rest of her slashing moves are going to do a little bit less damage. And also for her second passive, I would pick Attack Enhancement. This build already sacrifices most of the possible evasion. We still have Tobi's Vision card and a lot of luck, so that's good, but we're not running an evasion piece of gear, we're not running evasion vision cards in the other team members probably, so I think we want to focus on damage, and Attack Enhancement gives her defense penetration, which is a must against many enemies. So that being said, we're going for super high spirit, but you could also use a magic resistance build. And the idea here is we're going to be using probably Thetis's necklace or any piece of gear that gives magic resistance. And then on top of that, you want to have the Fenrir Vision card on someone, which will get her magic resistance to a total of 25. So she has a base of -5%, Thetis's necklace gives her 10%, so she's at 5. Fenrir VC, she's now at 25. And then if you have a friendly Spellblade that uses the resist magic buff, well, she now has 63% magic resistance. Now, she's fine. Not that scared of magic attacks anymore, for 3 turns, of course. So that would be another route you could go, but I prefer the route that doesn't require many teammates to help her out, because I want to show a build that's really for Tobi, and then you can build your own team around that. Also later, I'll be talking about the abilities on-off for those specific builds, so we'll cover that in the near future. Now, how do we get to 45 to 70 spirit? Because that's the big thing. It seems like a really big number, but here we go. So, if you have level 5 guild statues, what I think most established guilds have right now, you're getting 2 spirit. Then, the Nier Automata Vision card gives 8 spirit to win characters and 4 spirit to the character using it, so 12 overall. Thetis's necklace, if that's what we're using, gives you 16 more. And then, the Titan Esper has 15 spirit in its nodes, so you have a base of 45. Then, I would equip Rain's TMR on someone. Now, ideally not on Tobi, because I would rather give her an agility piece of gear. But it could be on Tobi, and it's fine, because Thetis's necklace is an accessory, and Rain's clothing is an armor, so that would work. But if you have Rain's TMR with its maxed out ability on someone, and that person uses its buff on Tobi, well then her spirit goes all the way to 70, and she'll be fine from magic attacks for a couple turns. And then she can go in and attack. If we go back to the previous slide a little bit, she still has over 1200 attack, and that's without other vision cards. So in this build, the only thing we're counting are what Tobi currently has, but you could be running a vision card that provides attack up and go even higher if you wanted to. So she's still going to do a lot of damage. That's what I wanted to say. So that's it for the Magic Bruiser build. I can't wait to try it myself, but I'm going to need Resonance with Titan for that. Now let's move on to the second build, and that's the Physical Bruiser. The idea here is very similar. So we're using Absorb Plus to try to stay healthy, while we're using some other shenanigans to increase our defense high enough to survive. In this build, it's actually the only build in which armor deployment is on in the abilities on-off, because if it's on, Tobi will use this first, which is detrimental if you're trying to be fighting mages, or if you're trying to be an evasion unit and you need an evasion buff. But if you're a physical bruiser, that 30% barrier is actually very handy, so you want her to use it. So the idea is she will have high resistance to physical attacks and then heal back up when she hits enemies back. This time, we're swapping out Thetis's necklace for a piece of gear that provides defense, for example, the Platinum Robe. And then Titan provided Spirit, but we're going to swap him out for Golem, which provides some defense up. And with this build, and Tobi's in at 4 points of defense, we have a base of 39 defense, which coupled with 5800 HP should be enough to take a couple hits, especially if we have a physical barrier. Now, if on top of that she uses Iron Body Stance, or friendly Tidus uses Cheer, or whatever else boosts her defense, well, she can get all the way to 54, which is very high. That's going to be giving her a lot more tankiness towards physical attacks. Now, again, this build is based on defense, so if you're fighting enemy snipers with high defense penetration, or just enemies with defense penetration in general, you won't be able to mitigate their damage that much. Snipers, I think, are the biggest threat because they can both ignore defense a lot and break your barrier, so you should probably avoid those. Then again, the drawbacks of this build: while you are very tanky to physical attacks, you still sacrifice some evasion, so you're not going to be dodging a lot of attacks, and you sacrifice some agility. So my to-be evasion build has 95 agility. This one has only 86, so she's a bit slower. And I think this build is going to deal more damage overall than the Magic Bruiser build, because Golem gives some Man-Eater, so that's going to boost all of 2B's damage types instead of only piercing attacks. So it's going to be a little bit stronger in terms of the damage capabilities. And again, how do we get to 39 defense? That number seems pretty high, but here we go. Guild Statue gives you 2 if they're at level 5. Then the Platinum Robe is going to give me 18 if you have other pieces of gear. Of course, use the highest defense piece of gear you have for to be. That's the general idea. The Golem Esper will give me 15 defense, and then to be has a base of 4. So that amounts to a total of 39. And if she uses the Iron Body Stance buff, that goes all the way to 54. Now, you could use a friendly Thancred to put that defense even higher, but I don't think Thancred provides much to this build outside of that, so not necessarily my recommendation. But that's my idea right now for a physical bruiser to be build. Now let's take a look at the evasion build, which I think is the most common one you guys are going to see, mainly because it's very, very strong if you're not fighting an enemy that has guaranteed hit abilities. So the idea here is you want a piece of gear that gives you evasion, and you want the Blade Soul passive, which we were not using because the previous builds used Absorb Plus to heal back up. But this time she does not need to heal back up if she's not getting hit. And this build goes pretty much all in on evasion. So if you're getting hit, it will likely kill you in one hit, unless you have some other ways to boost your survivability from your teammates, possibly. Because to be has low defenses, like only 12 points of defense, 21 spirit. Admittedly, that's not terrible, but it's not nearly as high as what we had with the previous builds. What she does have, though, is super high evasion, very high agility, and also high damage, because I'm using Odin with Mankiller. This build has more survivability with Tetrasulfid, who provides a lot more evasion than Odin does. But the thing is, I found from my experience that this build performs well enough without Tetrasulfid, so I'm happy to get a bit more damage on the side. When Tetrasulfid gets its 3-star upgrade, it's going to have perfect nodes for to be, and I think it's going to replace Odin at that point. But for now, Missile Attack Up doesn't really benefit her, so all she's getting out of Tetrasulfid is more evasion, so I'm not that convinced about it. And I apparently left these in green, but the weaknesses of this build is guaranteed hit abilities. Guaranteed hit abilities will completely negate your sole advantage, which is being hard to hit. So you want to avoid those opponents at all costs. Also, this build requires another party member to have Shiva. So in the previous builds I was showing, you don't really need much support from teammates. These builds are made for to be strong as a standalone unit. But if you're going for evasion, you need all the support you can get, and that includes a Shiva vision card maxed out on one of your teammates. And also she has low defenses, so if she does get hit, and if you're unlucky, well, you might die. Evasion still has a portion of it that's RNG, and you might have bad luck and lose matches. That's the way the build works. Also, this is the only build where I would run Samurai, because you need an evasion buff. That can be Illusion from Samurai or other sources. But for other builds, I like the idea of running Pugilist because it just provides you an additional damage type, and it's really cool in general. But for the evasion build, you need Samurai to be, because you need that extra evasion. So let's go into the abilities on off, which I think a lot of people want to know about. The first thing I want to say is if To Be has access to armor deployment, she will use that on her first turn and then run forward. That means if you're going for the magic resistance build, well, you need to have that off, because you want To Be to go near your teammates and then receive the Rain's TMR. So if she has Rain's TMR herself, she's going to use that. Cool. If another friend has Rain's TMR, you need to give another AoE ability to Be, probably Resistance Field, so that she gets next to her teammates and then benefits from the TMR ability. So armor deployment is off for the magic build. It's also off for the evasion build, because again, you want her to use illusion rather than armor deployment and running forward. But if you're running the physical Bruiser build, then armor deployment is perfect. A physical barrier on top of all your defense is just what she needs. Then second ability, Resistance Field. I would turn that off in most matchups. I find that it's a little bit awkward that To Be will use this, and it doesn't provide an advantage against every enemy. Not all matchups are about slash and striking damage, and not all enemies have disables or berserk or the other status effects. So I think it's an ability that you'll turn on versus specific enemies, and you'll turn it off against others. It's a very good ability against, for example, the upcoming King Mont, or against Agrias, who can disable you a lot. So depending who you fight, you might want it, but generally I would turn it off, again because it's an AoE ability and it really messes with her AI. Then all her other abilities, from my experience so far, are great, and you don't need to turn anything else, because she'll just use the best damaging ability for the situation. So these are really the two abilities that I think you have to turn off depending on the scenario. And then the last thing I want to talk about is partners for To Be. I think in general, the partner I like the most for To Be right now is Nivlu. The reason for that is she has Time Mage abilities, so Quicken and Haste, which are both great tools in general, but also To Be has no way of reducing enemy defense, while Nivlu's Limit Break can do that, and then To Be has no way of dispelling buffs from the enemy or breaking barriers. So if you're fighting an enemy that uses Sentinel, well, you want to dispel that. If you're fighting an enemy that has barriers, you want to break that barrier. And Nivlu provides all those supportive aspects so that To Be can just come in and deal the massive damage she can do. So I think she's a really good partner in general for To Be as an attacker. Now, for the evasion build, I put Nivlu in there, but really any ranged character that has Nivlu's TMR can work wonders. The ability from that TMR provides even more evasion than illusion. So that has two advantages. First, you don't need To Be to use evasion if somebody else is going to be using that. And then second, you get even more evasion. So it's a great partner. And then I think Halloween Little Leela is also a pretty good partner. And the reason for that is To Be uses a vision card that provides luck for wind units only. That means she's not a great partner for evasion units in general, unless you're using a different vision card, but then you're giving up a lot of your offense. So only wind units really get evady unless you're running another luck card on your team. And Halloween Little Leela is the most evady, I would say, wind unit aside from To Be, and she can also full life you in case of a bad luck, or a guaranteed hit ability that comes in. So I think they're naturally great partners. Then if you're running the Magic Bruiser build, well, you want somebody with ranked TMR if you have it. Could be To Be, could be somebody else, but that's a great option. Another one though, if you don't have ranked TMR, is running 9S, because he has a buff that gives plus 15 spirit. That means your spirit is going to cap at 60 instead of 70, but that's still very respectable and good for a lot of scenarios. Then if you want other people to take the aggro because you still don't want to get chained to death, Marial has innate hate, but really any spellblade will give you additional resistance to magic attacks on top of your high spirit. And then Rain's a great option by himself because he can generate hate and has a high spirit innately, so he'll also take attacks away from you. Then the physical Bruiser team. I would say anybody that can also increase defense is a good fit. 9S, again, increases defense and spirit. Tidus has Cheer, which also increases your survivability. But you could also use someone like Elsirel to increase your resistances, which is another way to be hard to kill. And I think Elsirel and Tibi have some form of synergy, where Tibi increases resistance to slash and strike attacks, while Elsirel increases resistance to magic, piercing, and missile attack. So with those two characters together, you can actually increase all types of resistances, which seems like a fun thing to me. I definitely want to try that out eventually. So with that said, that's enough theory crafting for today. I'm really eager to try those builds myself, but hopefully you guys found it interesting to do a little bit of a preview of what's coming on my channel, and also you guys might try those builds if you want and let me know how it goes for you. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. It will make it more likely that you see my content in the future. And as always, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.